Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. Today, I am joined by writer, producer, director, man of many hats, Mr. Dean Devlin. How are you doing today?
I'm well, all things considered.
All things considered, definitely. We are here because you have a new TV show starting on March 30th on WGN called Almost Paradise, which stars Christian Kane. And I wanted to just jump right in and ask what inspired this project.
Well, it actually started many years ago on my honeymoon. My wife and I were honeymooning in Hawaii. And, there's just something so magical about the Pacific Islands and, the spirituality there and the idea of island justice. And it got me thinking about my own roots. I'm half Filipino. And over the years, as I was developing the project, I realized, most Americans have never seen anything that's come from the Philippines. In fact, this is the very first scripted television series to be done in the Philippines. It's, growing up Filipino, most people, when I would talk about my heritage, the only thing they knew of the Philippines was either Imelda Marcos's shoes or Manny Pacquiao. Mm-hmm. And so I realized there's really a kind of amazing world to be seen that's never been seen before. So that was kind of the motivation. And frankly, wanted to do another show with Christian Kane. So it all kind of worked out together.
I had asked a friend last night, I didn't mention who I was talking to, but I said, and she's Filipino. She's born in the Philippines and moved to the States. And I said, can you name anyone in entertainment that, Filipino wise? And she said no. And I said, oh, you've got to check out this show coming next week because it's got Filipino actors and actresses and it's filmed on the island. And she was really excited to hear that.
Yeah, and the crew is 95% Filipino talent, from our DP, most of the directors, the production design, all the behind the scenes talent, and almost all of the in front of the screen talent are Filipinos. So it's a real chance to showcase just how good they've become over the last 15 years. I mean, their whole industry they've lifted the bar, and I think people are going to be surprised at the level of quality that comes out of there.
How important was it for you to film on the Philippines? Like if somebody had said, oh, let's do the show, but do it in Vancouver or do it in somewhere else, like was it a make or break deal? Because I feel like being on the island, filming there and having the cast and crew be from the island is definitely, it makes the island its own character.
Well, I think that's the thing. I'm old enough to remember when Hawaii Five-0 first came out. And, for most people, they didn't know what Hawaii was. It was this strange place. And to have a cop procedural in Hawaii, was kind of fascinating. And to me, I wanted to kind of do that same dynamic where we're able to bring a very comfortable type of show, like a comfortable little chew, but put it in an incredibly different environment, both visually and socially and spiritually. So, I think while this show is very much a fun kind of action show, it has a whole level that only can come from the Philippines. Mm-hmm. There's no other place I could have done this and captured the food, the smells, the looks, the culture, the traditions, and the way that integrates into our show, I think is part of what makes this really unique.
Did you have Christian in mind when you were writing the character of Alex Walker?
Well, the interesting thing is when I first started writing it, which was a long time ago, I turned to Christian Kane and I said, I have a great role for you, but you're just too young for it. So by the time I actually got it all finished and pulled together, he had just become the right age. I said, Christian, this worked out really well.
What's the experience been with being able to work with an actor like Christian Kane over such an extended period of time?
Well, the thing is, we've really gotten to know each other. This is our third TV series together. So I feel like I know how to write for him. I know what he likes. I know his strengths. And I think in the reverse, he trusts me. You know, he knows that I'm not going to make him look bad. I'm not going to put him in a bad situation. And, you know, over the years, we've developed a mutual respect. We've developed a language where we can communicate to each other very quickly. And again, because we were going to do a show, a TV series in the Philippines with a crew that's never done a show like this before, with actors who've never worked on a show like this, you know, the demands of a show like this, I really needed an actor in the lead role who would be willing to be a teacher, you know, and to be patient and to help show everyone the way in which we do a show like this. And I couldn't have gotten a better partner than Christian. I mean, he every day he was explaining things. I mean, even just a simple thing like when the crew would carry equipment, he would explain to them that you have to yell points so that they don't accidentally stick somebody in the head with a with a piece of equipment. I mean, just all kinds of traditions that we are, you know, we take for granted. But to people who've never worked this way, you know, they just needed the instruction, and he was a marvelous tutor.
That is, I can't believe the tie that you and Christian Kane have. It's one of those things where it's like almost like just that combo. Like it's if it's Dean Devlin, you're getting Christian Kane. Like that's what I've come to expect from series that are being announced.
Well, I love what he brings to the table. I think that he is an actor who actually gets better the older he gets. It's interesting too, because things that come so naturally to him, he doesn't really value. Like he doesn't really get how funny he is and how good he is at comedy, because it just comes so naturally to him. You know, Christian would rather spend all day working on a fight sequence than thinking about the dialogue. But you know, he doesn't understand that. Yeah, we love him in these fight sequences, but it's his ability to dig into character, to make things emotional, to make things funny. That's really what makes him a transcendent actor.
When I was talking to the Long Con podcast, which was a leverage based podcast, and they asked me to ask you this question: is there going to be eventually a maybe a reunion episode or a movie for Leverage? Will we see the team get back together at some point in the future?
All right, this is the only thing I can tell you. Before this year is out, something will happen that will make every Leverage fan very happy. That's the only thing I can tell you.
One of the things that you know, when I was able to jump at the chance to be able to record with you, is that one of the movies that you did a long time ago, I is the first movie that I saw in theaters more than one time, and that was Independence Day. And I have to say thank you. But with you having done Stargate and Independence Day in the sci-fi realm, and then ensemble shows like Leverage, The Librarians, and now Almost Paradise, when can we expect to see a sci-fi TV ensemble series?
Well, we have some cooking, and I'm hoping to get them up and running. I mean, to some degree, you know, Librarians had a taste of sci-fi and fantasy, but yeah, and Outpost definitely has fantasy. But the pure sci-fi stuff, you know, where it's always going to be very close to my heart. You know, I fell in love with this whole genre and this whole business by watching Star Trek and Star Wars. So obviously, it's deeply rooted in my you know, in my narrative. So yeah, we definitely have some projects that we're going to be going out with soon, and hopefully I'll have some of them set up.
With you bringing up Star Trek and Star Wars, I have to ask, is there one that you favor over the other?
Well, they both hit me from very different places. You know, my mother did a guest star on the original Star Trek. And when I was a very young boy, she came home from work with a prop, you know, a phaser from the show. Mm-hmm. And I always said that was like, you know, that was the crack that was given to me. That was the first heroin that got me addicted to all of this stuff. But I was also, you know, a very young boy who took the bus by himself to go into Hollywood. And I was number 9 in line for the very first showing of Star Wars when it came out in 1977. And so, you know, they both have such an important role in how I thought of fiction and how I thought of storytelling and mythology. So it's really hard to pick a favorite.
So you were inspired by Star Trek and Star Wars. You set the bar with Stargate and Independence Day. What are some science fiction like movies or TV shows out there now that really grab you and you're like, those are like the sci-fi shows now that like people are getting into that you enjoy?
Well, I have to say I'm probably not going to give you an answer that will make a lot of sci-fi fans happy, but the show that I like the most, the one that I'm completely addicted to, is Doctor Who. I mean, for me, that clicks all my boxes, and I'm just addicted to it. I know that's not as trendy as some of the other choices, but frankly, I can enjoy dark and edgy shows, but what I really loved about the shows you've just mentioned that you listed is that there was this optimism about them. There was this fun about it. It was escapist, and especially like in a time like now, escapist entertainment is important. It plays a role, and that's how I like my science fiction.
Okay. I had read another interview that you had done that you said when you're doing shows like Leverage, you wanted to get more of a Mission Impossible feel rather than like that dark and edgy vibe that had been really popular during like the late 90s, early 2000s of that, that dark grittiness that everyone's wearing black leather type thing going on.
Listen, I think dark and edgy shows can be very compelling, and I will admit I watch quite a few of them. But, I've always said that it's easy to have drama if somebody pulls out a gun and points it at somebody. It's really hard to do uplifting without it being sappy and corny. And to me, an achievement of a movie like E.T. is unparalleled because it's so easy to make fun of that movie. It's so easy to kind of put it down as, as corny. But try to watch it again without crying. It's really hard. It's an incredibly powerful story, and it's uplifting. And that's more where my interests lie.
Do you have a guilty pleasure movie or TV show that when you just really want something, and it may not be the best thing, but you just throw it on to watch it and be like, this is my happy place?
I have two. One is Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon, and the other one is Tombstone. If I'm flipping the channels at 3 a.m. and either of them are on, I have to stop and watch the entire thing. No matter how tired I am, no matter how early I have to get up the next day, those are my absolute addictive guilty pleasures.
With Alex Walker, the main character in Almost Paradise, he's forced into retirement. And what would your retirement look like if you had to be forced into retirement? Where would you go?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And I've thought about it. I thought, could I even retire? And then I thought, I might actually be forced into retirement if people stop letting me make shows. So, I don't know. I really don't know. When most kids are growing up, they go through the phase of wanting to be a doctor or a policeman or an astronaut. From my first game of make-believe, I was a filmmaker, and that's been my whole life. So it's very hard for me to imagine a life without being a filmmaker.
Well, I know we're near the end of the time, but I wanted to just say thank you so much, Mr. Devlin, for giving some of your time to me. And is an absolute honor and pleasure to be able to talk with you today.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on the show. I hope you end up digging Almost Paradise. It's a very meaningful show to me, both something that I find fun, but also that it has some very personal ties. And I hope your audience will check it out, and I hope they dig it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Tales from the Fandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.